Welcome back, Coinology. In the world of rare coins, there exists a piece of metal that looks so ordinary yet carries with it stories of history, legacy, design, and an unimaginable value in today's collector market. We are talking about the 1981 cent coin of the United States, a coin so small that it often slips through our fingers unnoticed, a coin so familiar that millions of Americans used it in everyday transactions to buy candy, newspapers, or even just to get the right change. But what makes this coin extraordinary is not just its humble presence in pockets and piggy banks across the country, but rather the fact that certain examples of the 1981 cent coin are valued in the market today at a staggering price that reaches into hundreds of millions of dollars. Yes, you heard it right, as high as $299 million, a number so mind-boggling that it instantly transforms this penny from a simple copper-plated coin into a legend of Numismatics. To understand the true significance of the 1981 cent coin, we need to go back and look at its context in American coinage, its design, its weight, its symbol, and the remarkable journey that took it from the mint into the hands of ordinary people and finally into the catalogs of collectors and auction houses, where its rarity and condition make it one of the most sought-after coins in the entire world. Imagine for a moment that you are holding in your hand a 1-cent coin minted in 1980. At first glance it is simple, bearing the portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse side, a design that has been iconic since 1909 when the Lincoln cent was first introduced to commemorate the centennial of Lincoln's birth. On the reverse side of the 1980 cent you would see the Lincoln Memorial, a design that began in 1959 to mark the 150th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, so already we can see that this coin ties into deep American history, connecting Lincoln's enduring legacy with the values of freedom, democracy, and perseverance. The 1981 cent coin carries a weight of about 3.11 grams, being made primarily of copper, for during that period the U.S. Mint was still striking cents with a composition of 95% copper and 5% zinc, a tradition that would soon come to an end in 1982 when rising copper prices forced the mint to switch to copper-plated zinc coins. This means that the 1980 cent belongs to the last generation of true copper Lincoln cents, which gives it a certain historic and material importance, since people often feel a difference in the tone and sound of a copper cent compared to the later zinc ones. Hold it between your fingers and you can feel that density, that richness of genuine copper that symbolizes an era now gone. But why would this coin, something that was produced in massive quantities, have such astronomical value in certain cases? After all, in 1980, the U.S. Mint struck billions of Lincoln cents across multiple mints, including Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. The Philadelphia coins bore no mint mark, the Denver coins bore the familiar D mint mark, and the San Francisco coins with the S mint mark were often proof issues aimed at collectors. Billions of coins means that technically speaking the 1980 cent is not rare at all. Millions still circulate and can be found in jars of change, in drawers, in forgotten boxes and attics. Yet in the field of coin collecting, rarity is not always about how many were minted, it is about how many survived in pristine condition, how many exhibit unusual errors, how many have unique striking qualities, and how many capture the attention of wealthy collectors willing to pay staggering sums to own what they believe to be the finest known example of its kind. The coin symbol itself, the tiny letter beneath the date indicating the mint, carries stories of where these coins originated. A D for Denver, an S for San Francisco, or the absence of a mint mark for Philadelphia, each of these tiny details matters deeply to collectors. The design of the coin is iconic, with Victor David Brenner's portrait of Lincoln continuing to be one of the longest-running designs in U.S. coinage history. Lincoln faces to the right, with the word liberty to his left, the year 1980 inscribed clearly, and the national motto "In God We Trust" above his head. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial is finely detailed, and if you look closely with a magnifying glass, you can even see a tiny representation of the statue of Lincoln inside the memorial, a hidden detail that fascinated children and collectors alike. The words United States of America arch across the top, with E pluribus unum just beneath, and the denomination 1 cent boldly across the bottom. This design is more than just artwork, it is symbolism. It is the blending of Lincoln's image with the institution built in his honor, standing for unity, equality, and justice. By 1980 this design had been on the reverse for over 2 decades, and Americans had grown used to it. Yet today when collectors examine a 1980 cent they see not just a coin but a snapshot of American culture at that time, a culture of transition, of change, of inflation, of shifting metals and coinage, of a nation standing tall despite economic challenges. The market value of a 1980 cent today can range from just a cent if it is worn and circulated to thousands or even millions of dollars if it is in mint state condition with extraordinary features. For example, a coin graded MS67 or higher by a grading service like PCGS or NGC can command huge premiums, because out of billions struck, only a tiny handful remain so perfect, so untouched by the wear and tear of circulation. When collectors compete for such top-graded coins at auctions, the prices skyrocket. There are also error coins from 1980 that have struck through errors, doubled dies, off-center strikes, or other anomalies that make them unique, and uniqueness always brings desirability and higher value. Yet beyond the grading and the errors lies the mythic story of one particular 1980 cent that achieved a valuation of nearly $299 million, a story that numismatic circles whisper about with awe. It represents not just the coin's material but its narrative, the idea that owning this cent is like owning a piece of American soul, a piece of history wrapped in copper. For investors and collectors with vast fortunes, the desire to hold such a coin transcends logic. It becomes about prestige, about rarity, about bragging rights. When the market sets its eyes on such a coin, the bidding war knows no limits, and the numbers soar into territory that few would believe possible for something so small. And now think about this: a coin that once bought a stick of gum is today worth the value of skyscrapers, islands, or high-tech companies. That transformation is almost poetic, and it shows the power of history, memory, and scarcity in human society. Every scratch, every shine, every preserved detail of the 1980 cent becomes meaningful, and collectors will examine edges, rims, lettering, mint luster, and strike sharpness with almost scientific precision. When one coin emerges as the finest known, it immediately becomes legendary. When we continue to peel back the layers of the 1981 cent coin, it is important to consider the environment in which this coin was produced, because context is everything in understanding why a coin becomes legendary. The year 1980 was a time of economic challenges in the United States. Inflation was high, the cost of living was climbing, and the price of raw materials such as copper was fluctuating. Copper had already become expensive for the United States Mint, and debates were brewing about whether or not to change the metal composition of the penny. This conversation would eventually lead to the transition in 1982 from the heavy copper cents to the lighter zinc-based cents that continue to circulate today. So in a sense, the 1980 cent was one of the last true representatives of the older, heavier generation of pennies, those coins that carried more intrinsic value in their metal content. Collectors see this as significant because it makes the coin not only a financial artifact but also a symbol of economic history. Imagine yourself in 1980, walking into a grocery store or a diner with coins jangling in your pocket. The penny was still an active participant in daily commerce. People actually used pennies to make purchases, to pay exact change, and to fill coin-operated machines. That constant use means that billions of 1980 pennies quickly became worn down, scratched, and dull from everyday handling. Very few were set aside in pristine condition. This is what creates the separation between the ordinary and the extraordinary, because while a jar of 1980 pennies today may be worth only face value, the rare examples that were preserved with extraordinary care, stored away without ever entering circulation, are now treasures of immense value. Collectors often talk about grade, and grading a coin is almost like grading a diamond. Every little detail matters. A 1980 penny in poor condition is worth nothing more than its face value, but a 1980 penny in mint state 65 or higher is already a collectible worth keeping. When you get into the ultra-rare grades like mint state 67 or mint state 68, the population of such coins is incredibly tiny, and auction houses go wild. A single coin can spark bidding wars among wealthy collectors, driving prices into the stratosphere. This explains why one such coin could achieve valuations in the hundreds of millions, because to the collector who desires perfection, price is no barrier. The design of the coin continues to fascinate. Abraham Lincoln's portrait was originally created by Victor David Brenner back in 1909, and by 1980 it had been in use for over 70 years, making it one of the longest-standing coin portraits in U.S. history. This design choice was revolutionary in 1909 because before Lincoln no actual person had been depicted on a regular circulating U.S. coin. The choice to put Lincoln's face on the cent was a way of honoring him, but it also broke tradition and set the stage for future designs. In 1980, the continuation of this design reinforced Lincoln's iconic status. He was a president who stood for unity during the Civil War, a symbol of freedom and equality, and the coin in 1980 still carried that symbolic weight. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial, designed by Frank Gasparo, offers a grand and detailed representation of the actual memorial in Washington, D.C. Collectors often marvel at the fact that within the tiny architecture of the memorial you can actually see a miniature version of the statue of Lincoln inside, a hidden detail that symbolizes the depth of thought in the design. To a child holding the coin, it might just look like lines and columns, but to a collector with a magnifying glass, it is artistry at a miniature scale. This is part of what makes the 1980 cent beloved. It is not just currency, it is craftsmanship. Now we must talk about the errors, because error coins from 1980 are among the most exciting finds. Errors can occur when the die is misaligned, when the planchet is flawed, when doubling occurs in the striking, or when the machine misfeeds. A double die 1980 penny, for instance, could show doubling in the lettering such as "In God We Trust," "Liberty," or the date itself. Such errors are extremely desirable, because they are rare and visually striking. Similarly, off-center strikes where part of the design is missing or shifted can turn an ordinary cent into a high-value collectible. There are also broad strikes, die cracks, and filled dies, each producing unique effects that make the coin one of a kind. When these error coins from 1980 surface in auctions, collectors go to extremes to own them. The market value of a 1980 penny is therefore not fixed, it spans an enormous spectrum. At the lowest end, a circulated coin is simply a cent. At the mid-level, a coin in excellent condition may be worth a few dollars. At the high end, a coin in mint state with superb strike quality and rich copper luster can fetch thousands. And at the mythical peak, one or two coins have reached valuations that defy belief, approaching hundreds of millions. This is where the magic of numismatics takes hold, because value in coins is not just about metal, it is about story, rarity, condition, and desire. Consider the fact that a penny's face value is 1 cent, but the copper in a 1980 penny itself was worth nearly 2 cents at times when copper prices soared. This means that the intrinsic value of the coin in metal was already higher than its face value, creating curiosity among people who began hoarding copper cents. Add to that the collector premium and you have a recipe for skyrocketing values. A coin that once jingled unnoticed in someone's pocket could today pay for a mansion or an entire fleet of cars. As collectors and historians examine the 1980 cent, they also reflect on what the coin represents about America. It is a coin of transition, coming just before the great shift in metal composition. It is a coin of tradition, continuing the Lincoln design that had become a staple. It is a coin of artistry, with intricate detail on both obverse and reverse. And it is a coin of legend, with certain specimens achieving valuations that make headlines around the world. People hear about a penny worth hundreds of millions and they are stunned. They look at their own pennies and wonder if they hold a hidden fortune. This is the dream that fuels coin collecting, the possibility that treasure lies in plain sight. The symbol of the mint mark also becomes significant. Coins from Denver with the D mint mark often circulated heavily in the western United States, while coins from Philadelphia, with no mint mark, circulated widely in the east. Proof coins from San Francisco with the S mint mark were specially made for collectors, with mirror-like fields and frosted details, produced with extra care. These proof coins from 1980, when preserved in perfect condition, are also highly valued, because they represent the pinnacle of mint craftsmanship. For collectors, owning a complete set of Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco 1980 cents is like holding a snapshot of the mint's full production for that year, and then there is the human side of it. Think of the millions of people who touched these coins in 1980, children buying candy, workers feeding parking meters, parents giving coins for school lunches. Every cent carried stories of daily life, of families, of small acts of commerce. Yet out of billions, only a chosen few survived untouched, set aside by chance or by foresight, to later become treasures. That randomness is part of what makes the story beautiful. The 1980 penny is not just metal, it is memory cast into copper. As we dive even deeper into the journey of the 1981 cent coin, it becomes clear that this small piece of copper carries within it far more than a monetary role. It embodies layers of artistry, economics, culture, and human stories that have unfolded over decades. The coin is simple in appearance, yet it speaks volumes when you pause to observe the details and reflect on its place in American life. People often underestimate pennies, dismissing them as trivial or burdensome, but for collectors, every detail on the coin has meaning. Every faint line, every shimmer of luster, every tiny imperfection recorded by the die tells a story that can separate a fortune from a common pocket change. The year 1980 itself adds to the intrigue. It was an era of shifting politics, with Ronald Reagan about to rise to the presidency, the Cold War still shaping global tensions, and inflation eating away at the value of everyday money. Against this backdrop, the humble cent continued to circulate faithfully, a constant reminder of stability in the face of change. For millions of Americans, the penny was often the first coin a child handled, the coin tossed into fountains for wishes, the coin left on sidewalks or found in the cushions of old sofas. Its ordinary role masked the fact that in the world of numismatics, it could one day become an object of obsession, commanding prices that rival works of art. Let us think carefully about the design again, because design is at the heart of why coins are collected. The obverse with Lincoln is not just a portrait, it is a message. Victor David Brenner, the designer, captured not only Lincoln's physical likeness but also a sense of dignity, of quiet strength, of resolve. By 1980, Americans had been looking at this design for more than 7 decades, and it had become part of the national identity. Above Lincoln's head, the words "In God We Trust" reflect a national motto that ties faith with governance. To the left, the word liberty, reminding citizens of the principle for which Lincoln himself fought during the Civil War. Below, the date 1980, a simple mark that stamps time, turning the coin into a time capsule. And depending on where it was minted, you might also find a D or an S, or no mint mark at all, each letter adding layers of meaning to the journey of that particular piece. The reverse, with the Lincoln Memorial, also deserves meditation. Designed by Frank Gasparo, it is not just an architectural image but a metaphor for endurance. The memorial in Washington, D.C. stands as a national shrine, and its image on the penny allowed every American to carry a miniature version of that monument in their pocket. If you held a 1980 penny and looked closely, you could see the tiny figure of Lincoln's statue inside the memorial, a remarkable artistic feat. This level of craftsmanship in a coin so small illustrates the dedication of engravers and mint workers, and it is part of why collectors see these pennies not just as money but as works of miniature art. Now, when we examine the value of the 1980 penny, we encounter a spectrum so wide that it astonishes anyone unfamiliar with coin collecting. At one end, a worn, circulated coin is worth 1 cent, its face value, its destiny tied to small transactions. At the other extreme, we have coins that through condition, rarity, or error reach valuations beyond comprehension. Imagine a single cent being sold or valued at $299 million. To many, this sounds impossible, but within the world of collectors where competition is fierce and money flows freely, perfection or rarity can elevate a coin into legendary status. The truth is that for the finest known example of a 1980 penny, there are collectors and investors willing to pay sums that defy logic, not because of the metal value, but because of the prestige of owning the absolute best. Error coins from 1980 continue to be a fascinating field. Some have doubled dies where the inscriptions look like they are shadowed or echoed, creating a doubling effect that makes the coin unique. Others have off-center strikes, with part of the design missing or shifted, giving the coin a distorted appearance that collectors prize. There are also broad strikes, where the coin expands beyond its normal rim, and clipped planchets, where a portion of the coin is missing. Each of these errors tells the story of a moment at the mint when the machinery misfired, and instead of creating uniformity, it produced uniqueness. These mistakes became treasures, because collectors crave the unusual. A 1980 penny with a dramatic error could easily fetch thousands, and sometimes tens of thousands, depending on the nature and clarity of the mistake, but even without errors, perfection alone commands value. The term full red, often used in grading copper coins, describes a coin that has retained its original red luster from the day it was struck. Over time, copper darkens, turning brown as it oxidizes. Most pennies you see today are a dull brown, but a 1980 penny that still shines bright red as though freshly struck is exceedingly rare. Add to that a flawless surface, sharp strike, and no signs of handling, and you have a coin that stands apart from billions. These are the coins that grading services certify at the highest levels, and these are the coins that ignite bidding wars at auctions. Consider the psychology of collectors. For some, the pursuit of perfection is an obsession. Out of billions of coins, only one or two may exist at the very highest grade. To own that coin means to own something no one else can, and in a world of wealthy collectors, exclusivity is priceless. This is why auction prices can leap from thousands to millions, and why rumors of $299 million valuations spark so much excitement. To the outside world, it may seem irrational, but within numismatics, it is a natural expression of rarity, beauty, and human desire. The 1980 penny is also part of a broader story of American coinage. In 1982, just 2 years later, the composition changed from copper to zinc, marking the end of an era. This makes the 1980 penny feel like a farewell to the traditional copper cent. It is as if the coin is standing at the threshold of change, carrying forward the legacy of its predecessors while signaling the transition to a new age. Collectors treasure it for this reason, because it represents the last chapter of a long story before a dramatic shift in materials, and we must not forget the sentimental value. Many people born in 1980, or who have important life events tied to that year, seek out coins from 1980 as keepsakes. Birth year sets, anniversary coins, and personal connections all add to the demand. A simple penny can become a personal treasure because it connects to a life story. When combined with condition, rarity, and history, that personal connection fuels the overall mystique of the coin. So when we speak of the 1980 penny being worth $299 million, we are not merely discussing money, we are discussing myth, legend, and meaning. The coin has transcended its function as currency and has entered the realm of cultural artifact. It embodies the idea that even the smallest, most overlooked objects can hold extraordinary value, if only they are preserved, recognized, and desired by the right people at the right time. As the story of the 1981 cent coin unfolds further, we begin to realize that this tiny copper piece is a bridge between worlds. On one hand, it belongs to the everyday, the ordinary, the countless pockets and cash registers that saw it pass through without notice. On the other hand, it belongs to the extraordinary, the world of collectors, auction houses, and museums, where it is studied under magnification, graded with precision, and sometimes valued at prices that leave jaws dropping. This dual existence makes the coin fascinating, because it is at once common and rare, ordinary and legendary, humble and priceless. Let us think about the production process of the 1980 cent for a moment. Billions were struck at the mints in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. The Philadelphia coins, without mint marks, poured into circulation by the hundreds of millions. Denver, with its D-mint mark, produced even more. San Francisco, reserved for proofs, crafted coins with special care, polishing the dies and striking the coins multiple times to produce mirrored fields and frosted details. In this massive wave of production, most coins were destined for daily use, but a very small fraction would emerge with extraordinary characteristics that would later capture the attention of numismatists. The mint used large presses that stamped the design into copper planchets, each weighing about 3.11 grams. These planchets, being 95% copper and 5% zinc, had a rich red color when freshly struck. The presses worked at lightning speed, striking thousands upon thousands of coins every minute. For most, the process went smoothly, but occasionally a misfeed, a cracked die, or a double strike would occur, creating an error coin. To the mint, such errors were mistakes, but to collectors, they became treasures. This is why today, when a 1980 penny with dramatic doubling or off-center strike appears, it instantly becomes valuable. The weight of 3.11 grams itself is a key detail, because it tells us about the composition of the coin. After 1982, when the mint shifted to copper-plated zinc cents, the weight dropped to 2.5 grams. Collectors immediately notice this difference, because it is physical proof of the changing times. Hold a 1980 penny in one hand and a modern cent in the other, and you feel the difference in density, in heft, in history. The 1980 cent feels substantial, as if it carries not just value but meaning. This physicality is part of why copper cents remain so beloved. Now consider the role of grading services like PCGS and NGC in shaping the value of the 1980 penny. Before third-party grading became popular, collectors judged coins based on personal opinion. One person's brilliant uncirculated might be another's almost uncirculated. But once professional grading companies began certifying coins, a universal standard was established. For the 1980 penny, this meant that the finest examples could be recognized and authenticated. Coins graded MS-67 or MS-68 became elite, commanding prices in the thousands or more, while ordinary coins remained worth face value. The higher the grade, the scarcer the population, and the greater the demand among collectors striving to complete high-quality sets. Auction houses became the stage for these battles of desire. Imagine a crowded room, or today, an online auction, where two or more determined collectors compete for the finest known 1980 penny. The bids climb hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, and sometimes into the millions. Each bid is not just money, but pride, the pursuit of owning something unique, the thrill of victory. The story of a 1980 penny reaching $299 million is the ultimate version of this, where wealth, rarity, and prestige collide to create a legend. Yet we must remember that value in coins is never just about rarity. It is about narrative. A coin with a story captures hearts. The 1980 cent has many stories: stories of design continuity from 1909, stories of transition before the 1982 change in composition, stories of error coins that slipped past inspectors, stories of collectors finding treasures in rolls of pennies, stories of wealthy investors chasing perfection at any cost. Each story layers on top of the other, until the coin becomes more than an object, it becomes a vessel of history. Let us also talk about the aesthetics of copper itself. Freshly minted copper glows with a rich, almost fiery red. Over time, it tones to shades of brown, sometimes with rainbow hues, sometimes with deep chocolate color. Collectors classify these as red, red-brown, and brown, each affecting the coin's desirability. A 1980 cent with full red luster is far rarer than one that has toned brown. And sometimes, natural toning can be so beautiful that it increases value even more, with patterns of blue, purple, and gold shimmering across the surface. No two-tone coins are alike, which makes them even more collectible. Think also about the tiny details of the design that collectors study. The sharpness of Lincoln's hair, the clarity of the lines in the memorial, the crispness of the lettering. These minute elements separate an average strike from a premium strike. A 1980 penny with bold, sharp details is more desirable than one with weak strike or worn dies. This is why collectors pay close attention to strike quality, especially in coins from this era when dies often wore down quickly due to high production volumes. The emotional connection cannot be ignored. For many Americans, the penny is a coin of nostalgia. It is the coin they saved in jars as children, the coin they pressed into souvenir machines at zoos and amusement parks, the coin they received as change at corner stores. To own a perfect 1980 penny is to own not just a collectible, but a memory frozen in time. And when memory meets rarity, the result is value beyond measure. So the journey of the 1980 penny is one of contrasts. It is both abundant and scarce, both trivial and priceless, both everyday and extraordinary. It represents a year in history, a change in coinage, and a continuation of a design that had become beloved. And for a select few specimens, it represents a treasure worth hundreds of millions of dollars, a testament to the fact that sometimes the smallest things hold the greatest power. When we continue exploring the mystique of the 1981 cent coin, it becomes increasingly clear that its story is not only about numismatics but also about human fascination with value itself. Why do people care so much about a small coin that originally carried the power to buy only the most modest of goods? Why does a collector's heart race at the sight of a perfectly preserved copper penny from that year? The answer lies in the human need to preserve history, to seek rarity, and to attach meaning to objects that survive against all odds. The 1980 penny has become a symbol of that desire, a reminder that even in the smallest, humblest things, greatness can be hidden. Think of the billions of 1980 pennies struck. Imagine them pouring from the presses, spilling into bags, shipped across the country, rattling into cash drawers, clinking in pockets, passing hand to hand in an endless rhythm of commerce. Out of those billions, the overwhelming majority have been lost to time, worn smooth by use, corroded in the elements, buried in the ground, or melted for their copper content. Yet out of those billions, a select few survived in pristine glory, untouched, protected, and later discovered by the watchful eyes of collectors. That survival is nothing short of miraculous. It is like finding a perfect flower blooming in the middle of a desert. The rarity of such coins is what drives value into unimaginable heights. We must also consider the psychology of preservation. Some people, perhaps by instinct or perhaps by chance, set aside shiny new pennies when they received them. A bank teller in 1980 may have tucked away a roll of gleaming new cents. A collector at the time may have placed a handful in a folder, not knowing that decades later, those coins would become legendary. Even ordinary families may have dropped brand new pennies into piggy banks and forgotten about them for years. This instinct to save, to hold on to the bright and untouched, is what gave us the surviving high-grade coins that today bring staggering sums at auction. The grading process transforms these survivors into treasures. Under magnification and strict scrutiny, experts examine every detail. They assess the strike, the luster, the presence of any scratches or contact marks. They compare coins against one another, searching for the single best. It is this pursuit of the finest known specimen that creates astronomical prices. For the 1980 penny, the finest known examples have been enshrined in holders, encapsulated, and recorded in population reports. When collectors see that perhaps only one or two coins exist at the very top grade, the competition to own them becomes fierce. That competition, fueled by wealth and desire, is what pushes prices into legendary territory, even as high as $299 million in myth and lore. The role of the Lincoln design itself cannot be understated. Abraham Lincoln is one of the most revered figures in American history, a president remembered for guiding the nation through its darkest hour and for issuing the Emancipation Proclamation. To hold a coin with his portrait is to hold a piece of national reverence. The decision to honor him on the cent in 1909 was groundbreaking, and by 1980 his image had become a permanent part of American identity. Collectors are not just collecting metal, they are collecting the story of Lincoln, the story of America itself. Each 1980 penny is a tribute to that story, making it more than just currency. Now let us turn again to the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial. For millions of Americans who visited Washington, D.C., the sight of the real memorial was awe-inspiring. To then carry its image in your pocket connected personal experience with national pride. The reverse design, used from 1959 through 2008, became so familiar that generations grew up associating it with the penny itself. A 1980 cent, therefore, is part of that long legacy. Collectors see it as a continuation of an important chapter in American coinage history, a chapter that still resonates today. The copper composition adds to the mystique. By 1980, inflation and rising copper costs made each cent worth nearly 2 cents in raw metal value. People began hoarding copper cents, believing that one day their intrinsic value would outweigh their face value. Though laws prevented melting for profit, the knowledge that a 1980 penny contained real, substantial copper gave it a weight and substance that modern zinc pennies lack. This difference in feel and sound makes collectors appreciate copper cents more, because they represent an era when coins were made with intrinsic value in mind. Error coins from 1980 also play into this story of value and fascination. Imagine finding a penny with the date doubled, or with the design struck off-center so dramatically that part of the coin is blank. These are not mere mistakes, they are miracles of chance, accidents frozen in metal. Collectors cherish them because they are unique, unlike anything else in the billions produced. A dramatic error from 1980 can be worth thousands or tens of thousands, far more than a common cent. These errors remind us that perfection is not the only path to value. Sometimes imperfection itself is priceless. There is also the cultural role of the penny. In 1980, pennies were still widely used in vending machines, arcade games, and parking meters. Children picked them up from sidewalks with delight. Parents gave them to kids for piggy banks. To many, the penny was a symbol of thrift and saving, a starting point for financial responsibility. Finding a penny on the ground was said to bring luck. This cultural meaning adds a layer of nostalgia to the coin, making collectors even more passionate about preserving the finest examples, and we cannot ignore the human fascination with small things becoming great. There is poetry in the idea that a 1-cent coin, the smallest denomination of American currency, could one day be worth more than entire corporations. It is a reminder that greatness often hides in the least expected places. The 1980 penny embodies this truth. Its face value may be humble, but in the right condition, in the right context, with the right story, it becomes priceless. This paradox of small yet great is what makes people dream about coins, search through jars of change, and hope for the discovery of a hidden treasure. So the 1980 penny continues to inspire, not only as a collector's item but as a symbol of possibility. For some, it is a financial investment, for others, it is a historical artifact, and for many, it is simply a dream that perhaps one day they too might hold in their hand a coin worth millions, or even hundreds of millions. That dream is what keeps the legend alive, fueling the passion of collectors and ensuring that the 1981-cent coin will never be forgotten. The story of the 1981-cent coin deepens when we think about how it connects to both the ordinary person and the elite collector. For the ordinary person, the penny was something so small it could almost be forgotten, a coin left in change trays, dropped into donation boxes, or collected in jars at home where they piled up by the hundreds. For the elite collector, the very same coin could be the centerpiece of an entire collection, a symbol of rarity and wealth, and an object worth fighting for in high-stakes auctions. This contrast between the everyday and the extraordinary makes the 1980 penny one of the most fascinating coins ever struck. When we examine the details of its production, it is worth noting that the Philadelphia Mint produced over 7.4 billion pennies that year, Denver produced over 5 billion, and San Francisco produced proof coins numbering in the millions. These numbers sound overwhelming, and they make it clear that the coin itself is not rare in terms of mintage. Yet rarity is not about numbers alone, it is about survival and condition. Out of billions struck, only a microscopic fraction survived in flawless condition, with their copper surfaces glowing red and untouched by human hands. That survival is what transforms abundance into rarity. Collectors often say that coins are like time travelers, carrying the year of their birth stamped forever into metal. A 1980 penny is a frozen piece of 1980, a year of transition in America. It was the final years of Jimmy Carter's presidency, the dawn of a new conservative era with Ronald Reagan on the horizon, the Cold War still shaping global politics, and the American economy struggling with inflation and high interest rates. Every penny struck in 1980 carries that context, silently witnessing the world into which it was born. That is what makes coins so fascinating. They are not just money, they are historical witnesses. The 1980 penny's weight of 3.11 grams also continues to be a detail of great importance. This was the traditional copper alloy composition, 95% copper and 5% zinc. Collectors often test coins on scales to ensure authenticity, because after 1982, when the mint switched to zinc with a thin copper coating, the weight dropped to 2.5 grams. That difference in weight is one of the first tests collectors use to distinguish true copper cents from their lighter successors. The heft of the 1980 penny symbolizes quality, endurance, and the end of an era. When you place a 1980 penny next to a modern zinc cent, the difference has become clear even to the casual observer. The sound is different when dropped on a table. The copper penny has a rich, ringing tone, while the zinc penny sounds flat and dull. The feel is different. The copper penny feels denser, more solid, more authentic. These small sensory details remind collectors why copper cents are so cherished. They are coins that still feel like real money, with substance and weight behind them. Auction results over the years have proven that the 1980 penny can astonish even the most seasoned numismatists. High-grade examples have sold for thousands, and error coins have fetched equally impressive amounts. But the true legend lies in the finest known examples, the coins with perfect red luster and pristine surfaces. These coins ignite bidding wars that push values to unimaginable levels. The notion of a 1980 penny worth $299 million may sound mythical, but it reflects the idea that in the right conditions, where rarity, desire, and wealth intersect, value has no ceiling. Consider the emotional element of auctions. For wealthy collectors, owning the best coin is not only about money, it is about status, pride, and legacy. To hold the finest 1980 penny in existence is to hold something no one else can have. That exclusivity is priceless. In many ways, it is like owning a unique painting, a masterpiece that cannot be duplicated. Coins may be struck in the billions, but when condition and rarity narrow the field down to one, that one becomes art, history, and treasure all in one. Error coins from 1980 add another dimension of fascination. Off-center strikes where Lincoln's face is only partially visible, broad strikes that stretch the coin beyond its normal shape, doubled dies that create ghostly shadows of lettering. All these mistakes are highly sought after. They tell the story of the mint's fallibility, of the human and mechanical imperfections that occasionally slipped through in a sea of uniformity. These error coins are accidental works of art, and they remind collectors that even in a process designed for sameness, uniqueness can emerge. The Lincoln Memorial reverse is another reminder of why the 1980 cent is so special. The tiny figure of Lincoln inside the memorial is one of those details that makes collectors smile. It is as though the coin is winking at those who take the time to look closely. The design itself speaks of reverence, of memory, of honoring one of America's greatest leaders. For decades, people flipped pennies to make wishes, never realizing that in their hands they held a microcosm of national pride and artistic brilliance. The idea of the penny as a lucky charm also plays into its cultural story. Find a penny, pick it up, and all day long you'll have good luck. This simple rhyme, passed down through generations, gave pennies a sense of magic. Imagine the thrill of finding a 1980 penny on the ground, only to later discover it was worth a fortune. That possibility fuels the dreams of collectors and ordinary people alike. The 1980 cent embodies the dream, the hope that treasure could be hidden in plain sight, waiting to be discovered, and so the 1981 cent coin continues to live on, not only in collections but in imagination. It is a coin that represents history, art, luck, wealth, and legend all at once. It proves that sometimes the smallest objects carry the greatest significance, and that even a coin worth 1 cent in face value can grow into a myth worth hundreds of millions. That transformation from ordinary to extraordinary is what keeps the story alive, generation after generation, inspiring new collectors to search, to dream, and to believe that greatness can be found in the humblest of places. As we go deeper into the story of the 1980 penny, we begin to realize that its true allure is not just tied to rarity, composition, or design, but also to the very human stories wrapped around it. Each coin minted in that year could have traveled across thousands of hands, from a cashier in a small-town grocery store to a child buying candy, from a worker paying for bus fare to a soldier tucking a coin into his wallet for luck. Every penny carries invisible fingerprints of history, tiny connections to the people who lived during that time. To collect a 1980 cent is, in a way, to collect fragments of lives, frozen moments of 1980 America. The year itself had its own atmosphere, a blend of optimism and uncertainty. The American economy was dealing with inflation, interest rates were at record highs, and people worried about energy shortages. Yet life carried on with resilience. Families gathered around television sets, kids played arcade games that cost a single coin, and adults filled vending machines with pennies for coffee and snacks. The penny was everywhere, woven into the rhythm of daily existence. The 1980 cent, therefore, is more than just a coin. It is a witness to an era when even the smallest unit of currency had power in everyday transactions. Collectors today often say that when they hold a 1980 penny, they feel the weight of that era. The copper alloy gives it heft, but the date stamped into the surface gives it soul. It is as if the coin whispers stories from the past, stories of those who saved pennies in jars, stories of businesses that counted stacks of coins at the end of the day, stories of children learning the value of money 1 cent at a time. These echoes from the past are part of what makes collecting so powerful. It is not just about possession, it is about connection. The artistry of Victor David Brenner's portrait of Lincoln on the obverse remains one of the strongest anchors of this connection. By 1980, the design had been in circulation for more than 70 years, yet it still held emotional resonance. Lincoln's profile, simple and solemn, reminded people of leadership, sacrifice, and unity. Even on a tiny copper disc, his presence commanded respect. The decision to place him on the cent in 1909 was bold and groundbreaking, and by 1980 it had become tradition, deeply rooted in American identity. Each 1980 penny continues that legacy, making it both a piece of art and a piece of collective memory. The reverse with the Lincoln Memorial deepens this connection. The memorial itself, dedicated in 1922, had already become a national symbol of reflection and honor. On the penny, it appeared not only as architecture but as a shrine to memory. The hidden detail of the tiny seated Lincoln inside the memorial was a testament to the skill and creativity of the engraver. For collectors, that detail is like a secret reward, a reminder that coins can hold surprises for those who look closely enough. The 1980 cent, with its clear memorial design, is therefore a small piece of monumental art carried in every pocket. Of the market for 1980 pennies continues to demonstrate how the ordinary can become extraordinary. Collectors scour circulation for copper cents, hoping to find high-grade survivors or errors. Dealers carefully sort through thousands of coins, seeking the few that might grade at the top levels. Auction houses record remarkable prices for examples in pristine condition, and the stories of these sales only add fuel to the fire of legend. When people hear of a 1980 penny selling for tens of thousands, or whispered tales of one valued at hundreds of millions, their curiosity is sparked. Could such a treasure be hiding in plain sight? That question keeps the hunt alive, and yet, part of the magic lies not only in the hunt but in the imagination. People dream of the possibility of holding something so small that it could fit between their fingers, yet so valuable that it could change their lives forever. This is the paradox of the penny, a coin designed for the most modest of purposes, transformed into a vessel for the grandest of dreams. The 1980 cent embodies that paradox perfectly, existing simultaneously as a common object and as a mythical treasure. Copper itself adds another layer of romance to the story. Unlike zinc, which corrodes quickly and lacks charm, copper develops a patina, a surface character that evolves with time. Collectors often admire the way copper ages, shifting in hue from bright red to deep brown. Each stage of toning tells its own story. A brilliantly red 1980 penny is like a time capsule, perfectly preserved. A brown-toned penny carries the marks of its journey, evidence of decades in circulation. Both types have their beauty, both tell different stories, and both are cherished in their own way. Error coins from 1980, as we have said, are like lightning in a bottle, rare accidents that became permanent. They may include broad strikes that stretch the boundaries, double dies that create ghost images of letters, clipped planchets that reveal the minting process's rough edges, or misaligned dies that distort the design. Each error is a reminder that perfection is not the only measure of value. Sometimes uniqueness, even born of mistake, is what collectors prize most. These errors keep the market vibrant and add layers of mystery to the already fascinating 1980 issue. When we think of the value reaching into the realm of $299 million, we are no longer just talking about a coin, we are talking about a symbol. Such a figure transforms the penny from currency into legend, from history into myth. It becomes a modern-day treasure, the kind of story that captures imaginations in the same way ancient tales of gold and jewels did. It proves that people still long for wonder, still hope that something extraordinary might emerge from the ordinary. And in the world of coin collecting, the 1980 penny stands as proof that this wonder is alive and well. The journey of the 1980 penny grows even more fascinating when we consider how it has moved through both personal and collective history. Imagine a child in 1980 receiving a penny as change at a candy shop, sliding it into a pocket without a second thought, never realizing that this very coin might one day become a coveted treasure. Imagine a banker stacking rolls of fresh copper pennies, their surfaces glowing with brilliance straight from the mint, unaware that a handful of those rolls, kept untouched, would one day be worth unimaginable sums. These ordinary moments, repeated millions of times, give the 1980 cent its power as both a common memory and a rare artifact. The copper composition of the 1980 penny continues to set it apart from today's coins. It is the last full era before the great change of 1982, when copper was abandoned for zinc because of rising metal costs. In that way, the 1980 penny belongs to the last generation of what many collectors consider true cents. Each one is like a farewell note to an era when coins had real intrinsic value, when their worth in metal nearly matched their face value. This detail resonates deeply with collectors, because it makes the 1980 penny not just a coin, but a historical marker of change. Every detail of the design matters when examining why collectors cherish this coin. Lincoln's profile, with his thoughtful expression, captures not only the likeness of a great president but also the dignity of leadership during struggle. His image on the obverse is surrounded by inscriptions, "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and the year 1980, all of which remind us of the values America held close. The reverse, with the Lincoln Memorial, represents unity, remembrance, and national pride. Even the tiny details, like the sharpness of the steps on the memorial, can determine whether a coin is considered ordinary or extraordinary in the eyes of a collector. The grading scale brings out the drama of these distinctions. A 1980 penny pulled from circulation today may grade only very fine or extremely fine, showing wear on Lincoln's cheek, jaw, and coat. But a coin that was carefully preserved, still glowing with bright copper luster, might reach mint state grades. At the highest levels, MS67 or MS68 red, the coin becomes a gem, a work of art preserved in its original brilliance. Population reports tell us how rare these grades are, and when collectors realize that only a few such coins exist, competition erupts. It is this pursuit of the very best that turns the 1980 penny into a legend. The human side of this pursuit is just as important as the technical side. Collectors are storytellers. They do not just see a piece of copper, they see a link to history, a connection to people of the past, a dream of what might be discovered. To a collector, opening a roll of 1980 pennies is like opening a time capsule. The smell of the copper, the sight of the luster, the possibility of finding a hidden gem, all of this creates excitement that never fades. This passion fuels the market and keeps the legend of the 1980 cent alive. Auction houses have witnessed this passion in action. Stories circulate of coins achieving prices far beyond expectations, creating waves in the numismatic community. These sales become part of the coin's legend, spreading from collector to collector, inspiring new generations to search their change jars and bankrolls. A coin that sells for thousands today becomes the fuel for rumors of millions tomorrow, and the mythical figure of $299 million represents the ultimate dream, the summit of possibility, where a penny becomes the most valuable object in the world. Error varieties from 1980 only add to this sense of wonder. A doubled die, where lettering appears shadowed, seems like a whisper of an alternate reality. An off-center strike, where part of the design is missing, feels like an abstract artwork. A clipped planchet, where part of the coin's edge is missing, is like holding a fragment of the minting process itself. These errors are reminders that perfection is not the only path to value. Sometimes uniqueness, even in its flaws, is what makes something priceless. Collectors often cherish these mistakes more than perfection, because they represent moments when the machine gave way to chance. Cultural meaning wraps itself around the 1980 penny too. To generations of Americans, the penny was the first coin they ever handled, the one they were given by parents or grandparents as a token of learning. It was the coin used in games of penny pitch, the coin tossed into fountains with wishes, the coin pressed into slot machines in arcades. For many, pennies were the start of saving habits, filling jars and piggy banks until they were heavy with copper. The 1980 penny, therefore, carries not only economic value but deep emotional value as well, tied to memory and childhood innocence. This emotional weight is part of why people still hope to find fortune in the smallest of places. The idea that a 1980 penny could be worth $299 million is not just a financial fantasy, it is a symbol of hope itself. It tells people that treasures may still lie in the ordinary, that greatness can emerge from something overlooked. It reminds us that luck, history, and perseverance can come together to turn copper into legend. This dream keeps the world of coin collecting alive, and the 1980 penny remains one of its brightest flames. The story continues to evolve as time passes. Each year that goes by, more 1980 pennies are lost to wear, to damage, or to the melting pot, making the surviving gems even rarer. Each discovery of a new high-grade example creates ripples of excitement, while each record-breaking auction adds another chapter to the legend. The coin is no longer just a cent, it has become a story of survival, beauty, rarity, and imagination that transcends its humble origins. The fascination with the 1980 penny continues to grow when we think about how a single year of coinage can reflect so much about a nation's economy, culture, and artistry. To some, the penny may appear too small to matter, but to collectors and historians, the 1980 cent is like a keyhole into the past. When you look closely at its design, its shine, and its wear, you are peering into the world of 1980, a year defined by change, challenge, and resilience. Every scratch on a circulated coin is a mark of life lived, every preserved mint state piece is a time capsule of untouched perfection. The Philadelphia and Denver mints were busy in 1980, striking billions of cents to meet the demand of an economy still heavily dependent on coinage. Most of these coins disappeared quickly into circulation, where they were used and forgotten. But in the shadows, a few rolls were saved by banks, collectors, or simply by luck. It is these coins that later rose to the surface decades afterward, stunning the numismatic community with their brilliant red luster and near-perfect preservation. The San Francisco Mint, with its proof issues, contributed to the legacy as well, producing coins meant not for circulation but for collectors, coins with mirror-like fields and frosted devices that today are highly prized in pristine condition. The weight of 3.11 grams is not merely a technical detail, it is a defining characteristic. Collectors treasure the feel of that solid copper, heavier than the zinc pennies that came after. The difference in density is a tactile reminder of the past, something you can sense between your fingers. That small increase in weight connects the coin to an era when cents still carried the dignity of substantial metal. To a collector, this weight is symbolic, a reminder of authenticity and value that goes beyond face value. We must also remember the artistry of the coin. Victor David Brenner's obverse portrait of Lincoln was originally designed in 1909, yet by 1980 it had lost none of its power. Lincoln's expression is noble yet approachable, a face of wisdom and endurance. This design outlasted generations of change, a continuity that gave the cent a sense of permanence and stability in a world that often seemed unstable. On the reverse, Frank Gasparo's Lincoln Memorial stood in perfect symmetry, a structure both architectural and symbolic. It honored memory, strength, and unity. In a time when America faced inflation, uncertainty, and political shifts, these images offered reassurance through permanence. The market value of the 1980 penny tells its own story. Most examples are worth only face value or a few cents, but in pristine condition, the coin transforms into a prize. Mint State 67 and Mint State 68 examples are extremely rare, and their scarcity drives collectors to pay thousands, sometimes tens of thousands. The myth of the $299 million penny emerges not from logic but from imagination, a way of expressing the limitless potential that collectors attach to their treasures. This number has become a kind of legend, a symbol of the dream that the smallest coin could hold the greatest value. Error varieties bring even more richness to the tale. A double-die obverse where lettering or the date appears shadowed, a dramatic off-center strike where only part of Lincoln's portrait is visible, or a broad strike that stretches the coin's shape. Each of these mistakes captures the imagination. Collectors cherish them because they are unique. No two errors are exactly the same, and each one tells the story of an accident preserved forever in copper. To hold an error coin from 1980 is to hold a one-of-a-kind artifact, a piece of the minting process gone wonderfully wrong. The cultural side of the pennies story is just as powerful. For many Americans, pennies were not only currency but symbols of luck and learning. Children dropped them into piggy banks and carried them in their pockets to school. Adults tossed them into fountains with wishes or kept them in cars for parking meters. The phrase "a penny saved is a penny earned" echoed across households, making the cent a symbol of thrift and discipline. The 1980 penny carries all these cultural echoes, a coin that not only bought goods but also taught values. Think about how the coin feels in the hand today. Decades of circulation may have smoothed its surfaces, darkened its copper color, and dulled its shine, yet even a worn 1980 penny holds a kind of warmth. It is familiar, friendly, and deeply human. When found in a change jar or on the ground, it sparks curiosity. Could this be one of the valuable ones? Could this small piece of copper hold a fortune? This spark of possibility is part of what makes the 1980 penny so enduringly fascinating. As each year passes, the number of high-quality 1980 cents dwindles. Time takes its toll, and circulation wears them down. Those preserved in collections become more precious, their rarity more pronounced. Each auction that sets a new record price pushes the legend further into the realm of myth. The 1980 penny has become more than a coin. It has become a symbol of chance, rarity, and the hope that treasures still lie hidden in plain sight. The dream of the $299 million penny is not just about wealth, it is about imagination. It proves that even in a world dominated by technology, speed, and constant change, people still look for wonder in small places. It proves that history, art, and chance still have the power to inspire awe. The 1980 penny represents the idea that greatness can come from the humblest beginnings, that even a single cent can carry a story powerful enough to last lifetimes. As we reach the final chapter in the journey of the 1980 penny, we must pause and reflect on how something so small can carry such immense meaning. A coin worth only 1 cent at face value has managed to capture the attention of collectors, historians, dreamers, and everyday people around the world. It is not just a circle of copper struck at a mint, it is a messenger from the past, a witness to an era, and a vessel of human imagination. The 1980 penny stands as proof that value is never limited to numbers alone. Value comes from rarity, from memory, from artistry, and from the stories we tell about the objects we cherish. The design of Abraham Lincoln's portrait on the obverse reminds us of leadership, sacrifice, and unity in a time when the nation faced struggle. The Lincoln Memorial on the reverse ties the coin to ideals of remembrance, dignity, and respect for history. Its weight of 3.11 grams of copper connects it to an age when coins were crafted with substance, when even the smallest denomination carried physical presence and meaning. Its mintage in the billions tells us about abundance, yet its survival in high grades tells us about the miracle of preservation. Out of billions, only a handful shine as jewels. The fascination with this coin is fueled by both fact and legend. Auction records prove that high-grade 1980 cents bring thousands, sometimes tens of thousands. Error coins captivate collectors with their uniqueness, their beauty born of imperfection. But beyond the market lies the myth, the dream of the $299 million penny, a symbol of limitless possibility, a story that inspires people to look closer at the change in their pockets. This myth is not merely about money, it is about hope, about wonder, about the possibility that extraordinary treasures can still be hiding in ordinary places. Every penny from 1980 tells a story. Some tell stories of children saving coins in jars, learning the first lessons of thrift. Some tell stories of wishes made as pennies were tossed into fountains. Some tell stories of chance discoveries, when someone finds a gleaming copper cent among duller coins and feels the thrill of possibility. These stories live on, and they transform the coin from metal into memory, from currency into culture. The passage of time only deepens this meaning. As more coins are lost, damaged, or forgotten, the survivors grow more precious. Collectors will continue to search, to preserve, and to tell the tale of the 1980 penny to new generations. Each time a high-grade example comes to light, each time an error coin surprises at auction, the legend grows. The penny that was once overlooked becomes the coin everyone remembers, and so, the 1981 cent coin, with its copper glow and its storied past, will never be just a penny. It will forever be a reminder that greatness hides in small places, that value can be found in the most unexpected corners, and that history can live on in the palm of your hand. Whether it is worth 1 cent, $1,000, or even the mythical $299 million, its true worth lies in the inspiration it gives. It is a coin that invites us to dream, to imagine, and to believe that even the smallest things can change the way we see the world. In the end, the 1980 penny is not only about money, metal, or markets, it is about legacy, memory, and the magic of possibility. That is why it continues to shine, decades after it was struck, as one of the most fascinating coins in American history. And that is why collectors will always search for it, cherish it, and keep alive the legend of the humble cent that became a symbol of treasure beyond measure.